a lot of things have happened in Ireland lately. We had two referendums on the 8th of March, the care referendum and the family referendum. And their results were sort of like an earthquake that has some aftershocks afterward. And we did a segment about it 2 weeks ago, but it's important to see what has happened afterwards, because I must say, I was a bit more cynical with respect to how things were going to eventuate, but they eventuated much better than I expected. So let me just show you the results here and remind you of them. So for the family referendum, 68% voted against the government and only 32% in favor of it. And when it comes to the care referendum, the government performed even worse. They had 74% of the people against them.
Hi folks, sorry to interrupt the video, but I just want to direct your attention to the aesthetics range of merch that we have on the store. These are beautiful images that I think work really well as posters or mugs. So if you want to support us, going over to the merch store at shop.lotus.com is easily the best way other than signing up on the website.
So which question was which here? Because I know there were two referendums. I didn't look at this very closely because I know this was
here,
sort of your wheelhouse.
The first one is the family referendum, which has to do with what constitutes a family in the Constitution.
Okay.
And they try to say that all sorts of durable relationships constitute families. They never became explicit about what this means. And the second one was the care referendum that had to do with the economic help that the Irish state gives to mothers. And they wanted to expand the definition and say to any family member. And if they passed both, that would be the perfect way of saying we're going to arbitrarily define who requires economic support in exchange for political support. That's what they tried to do. And despite all the rhetoric that was pro-modernization, what they wanted to do is to give an air of legitimacy to having more arbitrary authority on their hands. So these were just lovely results. You can't expect results like these, especially you have to think how out of touch a government is when they stage a referendum and 3/4 of the population just slaps them and is against them. And one thing to say, because we did a segment about it 2 weeks ago, feel free to check it. There was a comment there that said Varadkar hasn't been humiliated, because that was our thumbnail title. So, how do you speculate? That comment aged very well, as you'll see, because Leo Varadkar resigned. That was one of the interesting consequences of the referendum. So on March 20th, 12 days after the results were announced, he resigned. Let's look at this article by Reuters here. It says Leo Varadkar, Irish Prime Minister, unexpectedly quits. I love the title. I love the unexpectedness of it. Okay, so summary here. It says Varadkar resigns 12 months before election, says new leader better placed to win re-election. Successor set to be elected prime minister next month. Now, a person called Simon Harris is the leader of the Fine Gael party. He was the Minister of Education from Varadkar's government. So what it says here, that the shock... Wait. Sorry. Yep. Varadkar's Fine Gael party will open nominations for a new leader on Thursday. They elected Simon Harris, with the results to be announced on April 5. They've been announced before. Parliament would then vote on that person succeeding Varadkar as prime minister after it returns from Easter recess on April 9. Now, one thing to say, because it's important to look at how they're phrasing things. They say the shock departure of Varadkar, who became the first gay prime minister of the once staunchly Catholic country in 2017, and it's why would they feel the need to say the first gay prime minister?
It's a victory lap, isn't it?
Yeah, but they don't say now the first gay prime minister who resigned.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
He's not the first resigning gay prime minister. He's the only first winning
Yeah, because that's a real issue with the woke. They just want to say we're the first this, we're the first that, we're the first.
Did they mention that he's the first gay prime minister to say the word "the"?
I don't know. Anyway, so it says here that his reasons for stepping down are both personal and political. Don't know about the
personal is
thing.
Political.
The personal, yes. Anyway, he did some careful consideration and some soul searching, and he said that
has he found his soul yet?
Well, it's not going to be a PM soul. That's the thing. He says that they need a new Taoiseach, and they're going to have to win the elections yet again, but he won't stand a good chance of winning for his party.
So I'm laughing because we're reading about Irish politics. So what's going on? Well, bookmaker Paddy Power has got a bet on who's going to become the next one. Of course they do. Of course they do.
Yeah. So what is interesting is, again, to focus on the rhetoric. They said that they wanted to modernize Ireland. They wanted to become more progressive. They wanted to pursue Western values because the Ireland is very conservative, according to them. But ultimately, that's all a skin suit. What they wanted to do was very simple. They wanted to arbitrarily define who gets economic support in exchange for political support. Full stop. That's what they wanted to do. That's, if you look at the terms, that's technically anti-modern. If you actually look at what the kind of political philosophy in the modern times was like in its majority, that was mainly about resistance against arbitrary government. So it's really fun now that people who are talking pro-modernism are trying also to gain more arbitrary power.
Well, the funny thing is modernization is just used as a bludgeon to destroy things that should have been preserved in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Surely it should be up to people to modernize for themselves. It's not up to the government to decide on their behalf.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I think that's just skin suiting, because I think we should remind ourselves that politicians use propaganda. They lie. Sometimes they do things, but say the exact opposite. So we should remember that there is such a thing as skin suiting. Speaking of skin suiting, you should check our latest symposium, the debate I had with Conor on liberalism and wokeness. You can see both our faces here are really interested in
You look
this
very
debate.
suspicious there.
Yeah, and Conor is very suspicious about what he's listening. Anyway, so what I want to say with this is that we should be very much mindful of a lot of things that happen and they're skin suiting. So in the name of liberty, more and more civil and political liberties are being deprived from us. In the name of security, Western societies have become progressively less safe. In the name of justice and charity, law-abiding, innocent citizens faced increased risks of becoming victims of crime. In the name of fairness and equality, members of protected groups have preferential treatment. In the name of modernizations, states assume more and more arbitrary authority. And at the end of the day, in the name of democracy, the popular will is constantly disregarded, and also its speech is denounced as hate speech. And here is where we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about this accursed Criminal Justice Bill 2022 and Ireland's campaign now to bin the bill. And a lot of politicians now understand that according to what they voted, and a lot of the people who speak against this bill right now, they voted for it. For instance, the people at Sinn Féin, they were saying that right now this bill is going to be very bad. I'm going to show you stuff, but they all voted for it. That's important to remember. Now, I'm going to come back here, but I want to say that we've talked to Dr. David Thunder about it, an interview last year. It was published June 9, 2023, because it's something that is really lasting in Ireland. This hate speech bill, Criminal Justice Bill 2022, is an appalling bill. It's one of the worst bills. We're going to show you stuff, and Callum, I'm sure you're going to think that it's just insane. Now,
I'm going to agree with it, apparently, though.
Yeah. So let me show you here what Sinn Féin spokesperson on justice, Pat Daly, has demanded that governments scrap their hate speech legislation as it is not fit for purpose. Here's what is interesting, because a lot of the community notes, they have some success recently. There are many areas where community notes are correct.
I've seen some wonderful community notes. I saw one where it's just like Palestinian child feeding a dog, and the community note was, "This is a cat."
Well, the worst community notes, I must say, had to do with Netflix and Alexander the Gay
of course.
film interview. That was appalling. But now they have some interesting things to put forward. It says, when the hate speech bill went to a vote, the Dáil on April 26, 23, every single Sinn Féin representative present voted for the bill. And now they understand that according to this bill, the verdict of the two referendums constitutes hate speech. So actively they imply that 2/3 and 3/4 of the population is actually engaging in hate speech because they don't want this modern agenda that is enforced on them.
This is your brain on globalism, yeah?
Yeah. Now, let's see here what they say, because it gets really funny, because you see, these are the people who didn't have a problem with this bill. And now when they see that the tide is turning, they're sort of reading the writings on the wall. They hear the word on the street. They say things like, government must scrap their hate speech legislation. It is abundantly clear that this legislation has been badly thought through and it is not fit for purpose. It must not proceed. You voted for it. I'm calling on the leader of Fine Gael, Simon Harris, to clarify whether it is his intention to press ahead with the hate speech bill that we voted for. Sinn Féin has raised a number of serious concerns about flaws in the legislation as it has proceeded through whatever. So they are actually saying right now that they try to say that they put up a fight against this hate speech bill, but they actually didn't.
What you mean, Sinn Féin are lying? Never.
Well, and we have here a more analytic view of what Sinn Féin members of the Irish Parliament voted for when they asked to pass the criminal justice bill. All of them, yes. Yep.
Well, there's no one in no, so I'm going to take that as a yes.
So what's the game here? Because we're looking at this, and you're absolutely right. Okay, they do a referendum. At the same time, they're trying to pass a hate speech bill, and Sinn Féin and everyone else is on the side of, the public are evil and must be controlled. And then they get the referendum result, and they realize how out of touch they are. So they have panicked. They've actually shat themselves and thought, okay, we need to do something else. That's the reason for this total 180, in which a week ago you were in favor of passing this crap, and now you've realized you're completely out of touch and how much everyone hates you. I mean, I've seen the videos from some guys I follow. Sinn Féin go knocking on doors now, and they just get people asking them, so what's your policy on open borders? And then they just like, I don't want to talk anymore. Yeah. And then they leave. And it's like, right, you know the public despise you. So what's their game exactly? Because I don't think they're going to stop being traitors to the Irish.
No one knows.
So why are they doing this?
No one knows. And the interesting thing is that a lot of them are using the language that says that we shouldn't proceed with it, but it has already been voted for on April the 26th of 2023.
Well, this is a phenomenon that has been going on for quite a while, that politicians talk as if they're activists rather than having an active hand in the legislation and the passing or not of it.
Yeah. So I will answer your question the way I see it, because I'm not infallible. I will tell you what my hunch is, and I will tell you when we go back to the document, because I think it's going to be a bit clearer. Now, let's watch this here, because it's interesting to see how right now they are talking.
That hate speech legislation, you're talking about all the works and all the referendums, and it's back in Helen McEntee's office now, and she mightn't even be the Justice Minister in a couple of weeks. We'll go to that. Do you think that will become legislation before the next election?
I think there's a possibility, but realistically, I think that there is a review process underway. There's an awful lot of amendments reviewed. There's an awful lot of people from both people who are in favour of it and both people who are against it who want that to be reflected upon.
That's gone, Neil, basically. I think what you're saying, but not explicitly there. The hate speech legislation is gone, isn't it?
I think in its current format, it would be very hard to see that progress through the door. But I think we are going back to reflect it, as Barry and others in his party have asked.
Oh, you're laughing.
I'm thinking of going, gone. It might well be going. Look, its present form, it's going nowhere.
Okay. How will that
complacency was the problem with the referendum, the same issue. can't repeat itself.
I'm not really sure what the present form of it means. I mean, what is it that you're looking to change about it, or what is it that the minister is going to change about it? Also, like, the hate speech legislation is just one part of a whole swathe of laws that have not yet to be passed by the Justice Minister, including licensing laws, for example, that we know as well some of our colleagues now no longer want. They think it's too much on the left side and they want that pulled back.
Who would have thought of all the places in the English-speaking world that Ireland would be the one that pushes back? I mean, everyone else has hate speech laws. I mean, in this country, it's comical. But the Irish are the only ones actually able to defend themselves on this. I mean, it's sort of just amazing to see. I mean, the conversation there being the entire culture did a 180 shift. I say the culture, the political elite's culture, between pushing this and it's needed and the Irish need to pay for white colonialism or some crap they were saying in the parliament, to now everyone being like, yeah, that's dead. No one cares. End it.
What is interesting to see here, though, is that the 180-degree turn is apparent because they don't condemn the bill. They act as if they are emotionally shattered by the result, and they act as if they take what the people want into account. But no one goes out to say that, for instance, it's condemnable. And I want to show you some very condemnable features by going back to it here. Okay, so. No, wait.
It's got a very large content, so that's condemnable.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we have some slightly technical thing. So I want to show you some things here. So in section 2, okay? Section 2, it says hatred. Hatred means hatred against a person or a group of persons in the state or elsewhere on account of their protected characteristics or any one of those characteristics. So this is an installment on a previous hate speech bill that they had. But it is much more severe. You will see here, they say they have protected characteristics. So they're introducing, legally speaking, the idea of protected groups.
The same dog shit we have in this country.
Preferential treatment. They say, for instance, race, color, nationality, religion, national, ethnic origin, descent, gender, sex characteristics, sexual orientation, or disability. Now, if you talk about nationality,
if you make fun of someone,
comes from a nation. So does that mean that everyone is protected?
Well, it would mean that insulting the English would become illegal. It would be hateful, which would be quite funny in a way. Obviously, I don't want this for Ireland.
But it's just awful. Just on the face of it. Utterly evil. And then, and it's been tried in the rest of the English-speaking world, and the effects have been terrible. So the Irish government were like, yeah, we'll do that. I mean, this sort of victory, I mean, just looking at it in that sort of terms, the whole culture is now 180'd. The ball is in the Irish right's hands. And if they can push this in some kind of political victory as well, actually getting representation properly, well then, fantastic. I'd love to see this be the start of the end.
This gets worse now. It says here, gender means the gender of a person or the gender which a person expresses as the person's preferred gender or with which the person identifies, and includes transgender and a gender other than those of male and female. If you see here, they say that also it's not just the distribution of hateful content, it's also the possession. If you see here, clause 10, it says here, offensive preparing or possessing material likely to incite violence or hatred against persons on account of their protected characteristics. So think of this. You have material, you possess something that someone who may be exposed to it may have feelings of hatred incited by that. First of all, you can't control it. All forms of speech can have that effect. But also it's interesting here to watch another complication. They say that they protect free speech on account of reasonable contributions to public debate that they identify as things that a reasonable person would allow. So all of that is just arbitrary. And I want to end by saying that it seems to me that the whole end game here is not so much to aid this or that group. It's to create total chaos in order to pose as the necessary, let's say, person and government to arbitrate in order to impose order to that chaos. So what they want is, it seems to me, just pure power grab. And I want to end with this clip here from Jill Biden, which shows what is in the mind of a lot of people who are actually pursuing the globalist policies.
History teaches us that democracies don't disappear overnight. They disappear slowly, subtly, silently. A book ban, a court decision, a don't say gay law.
A hate speech bill.
Before World War II, I'm told, Berlin was the center of LGBTQ culture in Europe. One group of people loses their rights, and then another, and then another.
Yep.
So just
do we even need to say anything?
Yeah. So people who pursue globalist policies need a mirror first. They're talking about the persecution of groups. They're talking about extremism and the rise of extremism. They're actually acting in ways that are either extremist, like silencing speech and gaining arbitrary power, or they're doing everything they can to create conditions like the conditions that Jill Biden is talking about there. But I'll just want to also comment that I don't know what about, I don't know whether her claim there is correct about the Weimar Republic.
Harry's the resident expert on it, but there's a phrase that often gets bandied around.
Yeah.
I don't condone the message, by the way. I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But it says, if you create Weimar conditions, you create Weimar solutions, as in it's saying that, well,
the reason the Nazis came about is because paedophilia became normal in Berlin. And she's now describing that as an LGBTQ culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, so that's it.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as Common Sense Crusade with Calvin Robinson. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.